Tom, yesterday when we spoke on the phone, we had talked briefly about that part of the book, and I glanced over it, and I feel like you can't really talk about Sinatra without bringing a little bit of that up, at least touching on it. I don't want to give too much away from the book, but where he and Johnny Carson, he had saved Johnny Carson's life.
Yeah. He actually saved Johnny Carson's life from a mafia hit. It's in my book. And the only reason why I would tell this story now, but just a little bit of a longer story, you got to read a book. But Johnny Carson was a wonderful guy and the greatest late night talk show host of all time, I believe. I mean, and I love David. And David would say the same thing. David runs a real close second, I'll tell you. But Johnny was a bad drinker. By his own admission, I'm going to digress. I was a bartender when I came out of the service. My buddies in the bar, when I was sober, watching them drink all night, most of the guys would either become one of the three R's, I like to say it. Like after a couple of drinks, they became Rocky Marciano. They wanted to fight everybody in the place. Or maybe after a couple of drinks, they became Rudolph Valentino and they wanted to fuck everybody in the place. Or then they became Rip Van Winkle and they just went to sleep. Alcohol affects everybody differently. Frank was Rocky Marciano. He'd get aggressive, after a couple of drinks, and so he's Rocky Marciano. Johnny would get silly. He became this romantic guy, So Johnny Carson, by his own admission, was a bad drinker. And when he was in New York, he had just taken over the Tonight Show like a year and a half, 2 years. He was just now getting started as a young star. And he went into Jilly's bar one night. Jilly had a bar on West 48th Street. Jilly Rizzo, Frank's bodyguard, was called Jilly's bar. And the who's who of New York hung out at that bar. All the FBI guys and all the mafia guys. I mean, the cops, the robbers hung out there, movie stars, famous people, politicians. And Johnny Carson went in there one night when a guy named Crazy Joe Gallo was in there. Crazy Joe Gallo, he got his nickname when he was 17 because he killed his first man. Crazy Joe Gallo was a mean, psychotic killer. And there were 5 Dons of New York. If you ever watch the movie The Godfather, you get all this. But the 5 Dons, a Don of like Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan, the Bronx. There was a Don of every one of those boroughs. And they did not, they ruled those boroughs. Crazy Joey Gallo didn't pay any attention to them. He did whatever he wanted to do when he wanted to do it. He brought, they only wanted like Sicilians in the outfit. He brought black guys into it to run numbers for him in the Harlem and all that stuff. He when he wanted somebody whacked, he didn't ask permission. So he had this reputation that he didn't listen to the 5 Dons. Crazy guy. He goes into Jilly's bar one night with 2 girlfriends. He was married, but he had Italian. Sonny, if you don't know, when you're an Italian guy and you got a girlfriend, she's your girlfriend. If you're single, but if you're married and you got a girlfriend, she's your gumadi. It's you're my gumad.
Gumadi.
Your gumad. Yeah, gumads. Gumads are very, to Italian men in Chicago where I grew up, gumads are very special. They had 3 holidays for an Italian man in Chicago. St. Joseph's birthday, St. Rocco's birthday, and December 23rd. That was Gumadi Christmas Eve.
Gotcha.
That's when you took care of your gumad.
Right.
Okay. And if you're a good guy, I'll tell you a funny gumad joke later on. But anyhow, so Crazy Joey's got these 2 gumadis with him, right? And they're wearing mini skirts and everything. Anyhow, I'm not going to tell any more, but Johnny Carson walked in. After Joey Gallo went in the back room with 2 of his buddies, he asked Jilly they needed to talk. He left the girls at the bar. Moments later, Johnny walked in with Ed McMahon, and Johnny had a lot of drinks, and he snuck up behind one of the girls and put his hand up her dress. And she let out a scream. And Jilly jumped out over the bar and grabbed Ed McMahon and said, "Get him out of here now. Get him out of here fast." And Ed had the wherewithal to get him out of there. She kept screaming till she was hyperventilating. And Crazy Joey Gallo came out and said to her, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" She couldn't get her breath. He slapped her to the ground until she got her breath. She said, "Johnny Carson put his hand up my dress." And I'm not going to tell you the rest. It's in the book. He was a dead man. He was a dead man. And Joey Gallo sent his 2 thugs out, said, "Go out, find him, beat him to the ground, cut his dick off and stick it in his mouth. You hear me now?" And they took off. And he turned on Jilly. He said, "Jilly, you son of a bitch. You let this Metagon, which is an Italian expression for a non-Italian, you let him put his hand up my gumacha." And Jilly said, "I was standing by. I didn't see anything." Anyhow, No, long story short, these guys came back and said, we can't find him. And the rest is in the book. If it wasn't for for Frank Sinatra, Johnny Carson would be dead. Frank Sinatra stuck his neck way out. It's in the book of how he did it, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Again, well, I have to finish reading the book. I skimmed over it. It was, and you said it to me yesterday. You said it would put hairs on your neck. And as I'm skimming it, I'm like, and even listening to it now, I've got hairs on the back of my neck. So it just chills. Like that is.
I don't know how that, but hasn't been in a movie like that scene,
right?
Or the overall tale, because that's.
And the only reason I told that story is because Johnny Carson's lawyer, Henry Bushkin, wrote a book and tried to take credit for quelling that he did that. There was no way in hell. Only Frank Sinatra could have done what he did. And you read in the book how that happened. And it was a scary moment for Frank.